Okay, welcome everybody to today's interest session. Interest is the ETIC Remote Engagement Sessions in Technology program that we run out of the Entrepreneurship and Technology Innovation Center, or ETIC, out of our College of Engineering and Computing Sciences at New York Institute of Technology. I am Dr. Mike Nizick. I'll be your host today, and I run these sessions for a couple of reasons. One is that you can't possibly have every technology available. Even out of school, even if you're kind of here for years and years and years, you still wouldn't be able to get and see all of them. And there's some technologies that are very specific and proprietary in nature that there are a lot of jobs open for if you do have the hands-on skill sets to be able to demonstrate those. So the idea is, along with your college degree and all the tech that you do learn during that degree, to offer some introductory programs through a program like this, Interest, into different technologies that are being hired. Lots of hiring going on for out in industry today. So one of the things, that being said, one of the things that's very useful to new job candidates, students going into the workforce, is to understand the concept of operating systems and understand the concept of command line control of those operating systems, right? So, today's session, Introduction to Command Line Usage in Windows and Linux, the two main, operating systems today are in use are Windows and Linux operating systems, right? Of course, you have Android and Apple, Mac OS and everything else, iOS and everything, but they're very proprietary in nature. They don't allow a lot of interaction with them. However, the two that do are Windows, Microsoft Windows, and Linux, and almost every distribution of Linux uses the same command line features. So very, very useful to have a session, and that's just to introduce you to the fact that you can do this. Some people aren't even aware you can do this. And also, when you start to realize how quickly you can do things that you'd normally be kind of pointing and clicking and opening files and folders and right-clicking and whatever, it makes it great to use and visualize it. But sometimes when you want to do 6 or 7 or 8 steps in a row over and over and over, you need to learn how to do it in the command line to make it quicker, but you also need to learn how to script and create scripts so that you automate those 7, 8, 9, 10 steps in any process, right? So today is to introduce kind of how to do that. The reason industry wants you to be able to demonstrate this and to show that you're aware of that is that, any job in any industry is revenue related, profit related. So the less time you have to take to do something means the more value they're getting out of you, right? So they want to see that you can think critically, but that you also have a good set of tools to streamline your operations so that you don't get tired as easy by doing the same thing over and over. And also that you have shortcuts to do any repetitive processes through the command line, right? So it's very, very powerful to be able to understand these components, right? That's where it kind of lies in the bigger picture of things as far as technologies and usage of technologies that are going to help you in the workforce. So, ETIC, just so you're aware, if you're NYIT students, ETIC is a center that we run that connects students to industry through hands-on experiential work, and we even have jobs available from time to time, and also connections into the workforce as well. So we do that through a couple of programs. Our NASA program hires students to work on NASA technologies. We have our certificate program in place now, which is a volunteer program for 25 hours that you get a certificate signed by the dean. For that project. We have our Ursula Robotics project, our interest program, which you're in now. We have our YouTube channel that keeps building each year. A lot of good stuff on that over the years. And of course, we have our hackathons, cybersecurity hackathons and design hackathons. The next one's coming up on March 31st, sponsored by ISC Squared. It's our cybersecurity hackathon that we'll be hosting out of ETIC. So you can sign up for that as well. The best place to go to kind of learn about what we do and what's available to you is nyit.edu/etic. The YouTube channel is, our handle is at NYIT and our Ursula Robotics project and program, proprietary robotics program, is, nyit.edu/Ursula, ERRSELA. Okay, so those programs are available to you as students, all free of charge, for you to engage with us. All right, start with our Windows commands. We'll do Windows and then we'll do Linux. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of show you on our Windows training server how a lot of these work. Anything we do today is available to you in Windows 10 or 11, but also if you have like a Raspberry Pi, I'm actually using I'm actually using a Raspberry Pi to go into our command line feature for you today. So if you have a device that is available to you, that's a Linux operating system, you can do everything we do today on those devices. Okay. Okay. Let me start by giving you as a couple of things we're going to use today. A couple of websites I found for you that are very neat websites. One is from ServerSpace, one is from Microsoft, one is from StationX, one is from Geeks for Geeks. So they're great resources to have and to use and to kind of like figure out what are the most common things I need to learn. Again, this is a hands-on. This whole program, this interest program, is to introduce you to hands-on experiential learning, right? So how do you show during an interview your potential employers that you can do what you say you can do on your resume, right? So you put this kind of thing on your resume, but then you could also show it as well. And in these programs, we like to kind of show this. All right. Okay. So you should have access to everything that I reference in this window. If I go back and forth between these windows or whatever, you should be able to go to them on your own site, on your own computer, and go along with this as we do it as well. And keep in mind, it's being recorded, so anything you miss, you'll be able to kind of watch later and slow down some of the features. So let's minimize this. So what you're used to, most of you, because I'm assuming many of you are younger and going through college now, or even recently graduated. But most of you are going to have grown up with GUIs, graphical user interfaces. That wasn't always the case, right? So years ago, when I started, most of the computer usage was all command line, right? It was just, it was not having any kind of a graphical user interface like this, runners with icons and being able to use a mouse, everything else. That was all, created during my time, right? So there's kind of no, it's kind of just the way things are now for a long time now. But keep in mind, these were all new technologies at some point. So what we're used to is kind of clicking on things like this and menus and clicking on icons. But really, every operating system will have its version of the command prompt, right? So in the command prompt, we're starting to work with just text-based and keyboard-based entries, right? Now, you would think, why would I want to do that? And why would it, it seems so much more work to do that. And in some ways, you're right. So like if I were to kind of click on an icon here and then click on this icon and load it and click on this notepad, whatever, you're getting these, you're getting these options where you're visually seeing what's happening. And that's great. And it helps you to think, and it doesn't take too much brain power out of your day, out of your work day to do that. So that's great. But sometimes what happens is that, like, if you're going to kind of, go to your file explorer, and then you're going to go to your C drive, then you're going to go to your share test folder, and then you're going to copy everything that's in here and go right click and then copy and then go back and then make another folder. It's really, in some things it's very useful to use the GUI and it's easier, but in many ways, when you have to do a lot of actual kind of configuration work, it gets quite tedious quite fast, and you're taking more time out of the organization's day. And there's no way for you to really automate those processes so that you could say, click here, click here, click here, click here, copy, copy, paste, paste, like you can't automate that, right? You can't write any kind of a program for yourself to automate that, to make that happen over and over, right? So every operating system, in this case, Windows, has its own version of what we call command prompt, right? Console mode, command prompt, command line really is what we're talking about. And when you start configuring things like network devices, like routers and switches and firewalls, they're all command line. There's very few that are that still have, or that have really navigated to browser-based type. So anything you do networking wise is all CLI. They call it command line. The Cisco devices are all CLIs and everything. So it's very useful to be able to do this. So what we'll do is we'll kind of just give you an idea, just real quick, just a quick demo of just kind of what would happen in this situation. So you can see right now we're looking at our C drive, right? And if we wanted to see what was in our C drive, we could type something called dir or directory, and it would tell us everything that's in our directory, okay? And if we wanted to go into a specific directory called, documents, we see that there's a document that gives us our names or dates or times when the file was created and everything. So if we wanted to go into, documents, right? Documents is now, I'm just going to move the toolbar for a second. Documents is now in there. So if we wanted to go and look at what was in the documents folder now these are all the actual documents. There's folders inside the documents and everything else. Okay, so we can continue to go deeper and deeper by using the cd command for change directory, right? dir shows us what's in the folder. Cd says change directory, okay? And sometimes if we want to go up one directory, we can go up one directory and go back to the, mnizic admin folder, right? And then we can even go all the way back to the beginning by typing cd/. And the reason these things, or will get to know these things, is that if you ever just kind of pick a particular command and do / backslash, I'm sorry, I always get those two confused, question mark, it'll tell you everything about that command. So it's gotten really, really robust where when you're not sure of how to use a command or what parameter to use or how to format it, it's really easy to use the question mark too. So my favorite command, CLS or clear screen, gets me back to a clear screen, so I always lose track of everything that's on there. So it gets very useful to kind of work on a clean template, right? So, if we do something called dir space users, this is everything that's in the users folder. So if we go to users, right, and we say cd mnizic admin, because we knew that was one of our users, I have a folder in there, right? And this is on our training server. So here's all my different folders. And here is, maybe you want to do cd desktop. You want to see what's on the desktop, okay? I typed that in wrong, but, and then you do a dir for that, okay? And sometimes what happens is that, you'll see there's a lot of interest stuff here and packet tracer stuff here for all of our, training sessions that we do. So sometimes you can't really see my hands so much as I'm typing, but you can see what I'm typing, right? So sometimes, going to click, open, click, it's a little bit tedious. And on top of that, you see how fast I'm getting into these. It's kind of a faster way to work, and sometimes you just want to make it a little more efficient. And what you can do is, as an example, let's say that we wanted to copy everything that was in desktop. Let's say we wanted to copy everything that was in desktop to another folder. Well, currently, if the folder named, let's say there was a folder called 215, February 15th for today, it was called demo 215, right? So if we said dir, demo 215, right, there's no file or folder called demo 215, right? So we have to create one, but that's okay because command line lets us to do all that. So if we do mkdir, make directory, right, and we do demo 215, okay, now I can go to cd demo 215, and now I'm in there, right? Now there won't be anything in there. So that was the equivalent of going to file, new, folder, rename, blah, 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 right? It's like sometimes GUI is wonderful because it's just easier to see everything going on. But when you want to really do stuff fast, and even more so, we won't talk about it yet, but repetitively, we can write scripts to just automate these processes because it's something we do all the time. That's what we try to do in industry, and especially like if you're looking towards like cyber or data science or anything, they really want to see that you can do a lot of this command line based, so that it's just more efficient for them and faster for them. So in this example, if we just go back one folder, what we wanted to do is I wanted to show you how to copy everything from the desktop folder to the demo 215 folder, right? And what you could do is you could copy star, meaning anything, you can do anything with a docx extension, or you could do anything, star docx, right? You could do anything named doc.star, meaning like any kind of document named doc.star with any extension. So you have all these variables, but we want to copy everything. So we're going to copy star.star before the period and after the period. and we're going to say, we're going to copy from, let's see, desktop to demo 215. Okay. Let's see if we can do this differently. Sorry. Desktop to. I'm trying to copy while I'm in the folder, so I'm not getting something right. So let me go into desktop, and I'm going to copy star.star to let's see if I can do this. To demo 215. It's not letting me do it because I don't have permission to copy to that folder, so that's okay. Let's see if we can do. Let's see if we can do MK C:, demo 215, right? So now we're going to copy. Okay. Okay. So because I was in the, sorry about that, because I was in the administrator, folder, and it was my folder, the copy won't put it into my folder. I had to take another folder on the desktop. So that was not the best demo for that, but copying from one folder to another requires permission, which we'll talk about later and how to do that. But so now what happens though is that now if I go back to my root here and I go to demo 215, the folder that I just created on my desktop, I have everything that was in my desktop folder now located in a separate folder. So let's say you had some sort of a routine, you wanted to kind of copy everything that was in some sort of I don't know, like a local folder for something, and you wanted to back it up every day on somebody's workstations. That's you wouldn't have to touch their original documentation. You could copy it over to some other folder. Okay. So basically, we have all these different types of, for the first demo piece here, the concept of actually being able to go into console mode, go into command line, and actually do these things is really all I'm showing you, right? So in those links I gave you, there are every single thing, and this one here from ServerSpace, I'll just use this first. They broke it down really nice, files and folder management, right? They broke it down into applications and processes, right? Talking about disk management, right? Be careful with the disk management piece on your own machines, please. That'll actually wind up doing a lot of changes and stuff like that to your formats, possibly deleting partitions and all that. Very, very dangerous. And because you'll be probably logged in as a supervisor, as an administrator, it probably won't even ask you if you really want to do it or not. So just be careful. All of this here gets very, very dangerous based on what you're using, what you're doing. System information here to get information about what your current setup is. Your network information, which we'll talk about in a second on using that for cybersecurity purposes. And of course, changing your changing what your the screen you're looking, you might go in, it might be really small or whatever it might be, and it might be you want to change the colors or something like that. You can do that. Okay. So there's some other stuff too. So those are really kind of neat and very useful. What I'll do, just to give you an idea here, just some of the system information stuff to start with. What you'll see is, things like date, like changing the date of the computer, okay? Changing the time of the computer, right? If you go into, if you look at something like version, like you're just on a system, customer support folks, if you're, have a job now or you're looking to get a job, usually the first job you get out of college is somewhere in the entry level, level support one program. So you're answering phones, you're taking calls, whatever. Sometimes you're remoting into someone's desktop while they're at work, and you're in your office, in support, and you're making changes on their computer. So it's very common that you're in command line behind the scenes. They don't see you moving. They're doing their work to keep themselves, focused, but you're behind the scenes, remoted into their computer, doing all kinds of stuff, right? So they get to keep working and don't ruin their day. In the meantime, you're doing all kinds of things in command line that they'll never see. So if you do, like with it, just a version, it'll tell you what version. So you may want to know, are they up to a certain patch, right? Maybe the problem is that they're experiencing something that your whole organization has experienced, but it's because they didn't get the latest Microsoft patch. Okay. So these, sorry, folks. So these, these particular, yeah, we'll do system info too, because that's actually a good one too, just so you can see that. Okay. So normally what would happen is that we would have to come down here. We would have to come down here, would have to go to, well, in this case, Windows Administrator, but you would go to Control Panel, right? You go to Control Panel and you go whatever. Sometimes you just want to kind of get a quick idea of what's in there. And, you want to, from a support perspective, you want to get in there real quick and find out what version of Windows are they running? What do they have installed, right? Maybe there's some new USB device that got installed that caused problems. Maybe like, hey, did you by any chance recently put in a, whatever it might be. So these are very, very kind of quick ways to get in there and identify things with the system to make sure that your time is spent very efficiently. Okay. I'll do networking last because it's actually really important. I want you to see all that. And I won't really go too much into disk management, but what you should know is that all the different things that you would normally do for, I'll do volume, vol, because that'll actually tell us, right, what drive we're in or what the volume information is. But everything else is going to actually make changes to the system. So I'm not going to encourage you to do that unless you're on a system that you don't care about. This is a good one, a schedule tasks. I'm not sure if you're aware, but Task Manager in Windows. So Task Manager in Windows can actually, it tells you what you're running, right? And it tells you all these different things that you have, kind of what process they're in, what state they're in, how much memory they're taking. So that's really, really good. One of the things is that you have the ability to list the tasks and kill the tasks. Okay. So normally what you would do in Task Manager is if something was taking up like a lot of memory, and you said, oh, I want to kill that. I'm not going to kill it because it would kill our session. If you right click and you go to end task, like just think about what you have to do, right? You have to kind of go start Task Manager, find it, index, right click, it's several processes that you would have to do. And here, going back to our Windows PC, here task kill will actually, right, you go to task list, okay, and you notice that, right, these are, all, in memory order. It's telling us how much memory they're taking, everything else, and you decide to, this particular task ID is process ID, you decide to task kill, right? Okay. You decide to task kill that process using one of these configurations, right? So you're like, boom, 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 hey, Mr. Jones, I'm trying to help you out here. You're behind the scenes on their computer. You're doing, your task manager information. They're not seeing anything. You have to take control of their computer. You're finding which one is taking up the most memory. And it's like, are you currently running this program? And the guy says, no. And you say, all right, no problem. I'm going to end that for you. And then, the guy says, oh my God, I'm fast again, right? Yeah. So all these things that are so quick for you to do, right, are the ways that you show that you're more efficient to your potential employer and your current employers, that you're being very efficient with your time, and because of your knowledge base and your skill sets, you can do these things without really, probably an eighth of the time that they're paying you to do it, right? Okay, so one thing we'll do is we'll just take what we did so far and we'll try to put it together in a couple of different things, right? So so if we were going to, let's just kind of say, let's just kind of do something like this, so just so we can put it up here. So so far, just in this short little, you know, kind of exercise and demo, we created a folder, right? And we copied one folder to another. Okay. We did a dir of that folder. We did version, we did system info. Right, and then we did see. Okay, then we did task list, right? Okay. So these are all things that we did so far. And each one of those, if we did them again, would take just as much time, not just in the GUI, but even if we did it in the command line typing, it would be over and over and over. Well, what if you were setting up a lab for a new or a new section of your business that you were hired for, and it's 500 PCs? You know, you're going to do this 500 times? Like if this was something you had to do, are you going to type in 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 commands 500 times, right? The company doesn't want to see you think that way. They want to say, like, how can this particular person, you know, use their time more efficiently, right? So scripting comes into play. They want to see that you can use text file-based scripting, command lines, file scripting, and also programming. So using Java and using Python. So in your programming skills, when you're going to use Python to create a Python program that will run with Python, they want to see that you can go out to the operating system using the OS, you import OS, and then you can use all the operating systems. So they want to see that you can script that way, but they also want to see that you can script in Linux. They want to see you can script in Windows. They want to see that you can see a repetitive process over and over, that you're going to need it again. So you create one script to run 20, 30, 40 different things, each time you do it, right? So just as an example, because this is what we did, right? Let's just say we created a folder. All right, well, we can't just say that if we're going to create a script. We would have to say, first of all, we'd have to say, let's clear the screen. Let's echo what we're doing, right? So let's say that we are running our script, okay? And let's say that we want this script to be very, very descriptive to anybody who's running it, right? And then we're going to say, okay, we're going to say make directory, and we're going to say /script dir, okay? And then we're going to copy. Let's say we're going to copy users. You may remember what our user was: music admin desktop, right? And we're going to say star.star to /script dir. Okay, so that was our copy command, roughly. I mean, that was what we did. We just copied everything out of the desktop folder into our new folder. So we can kind of get rid of these two, right? Then we did a dir, which is actually the command. Then we did a version, which is actually command, system info, which is actually command, task list, which is actually the command. And then what we can do is we can go back to CLS. I'm sorry, we can go back to clear screen. We can go back to cdc : /script dir, and then we can go back to dir just to show it, direct a final thing of what it is, right? And then what we can do after each one of these is we can put a pause so that we are going to wait after each one of these to kind of continue, right? And what we'll do is we'll put a clear screen to clear the screen, put another clear screen, clear screen. Okay, so now this is a script that we can actually run, but not yet. We haven't named it, we haven't saved it. So if we go to File, Save As, and we change it from a text file to all files, and we call this script demo.cmd. The system Windows sees CMD files and BAT files called batch files, .cmd, .bat files. It sees them as almost as executables. It's going to run whatever you tell it to do. All right, so we're going to put this in the C:temp folder. All right, that's a folder that's on here, and we're going to call this script demo.cmd, right? And we're going to save. Okay. So now if I close this out and I close this out, and I basically say, all right, let me run that script. I'm dealing with one of 500 computers that we have to do this on. And now I'm going to go /, right? CD temp dir star.cmd. And then we're going to say, oh, script demo. Let's just type in script demo, right? And because it's a command file, it creates the folder, it copies everything, it pauses, it asks me, do I want to continue? I say yes, right? It's now doing the process information. Remember the system information. Now I go and it loads the hotfix information. Now it gives me that. Now it's pausing again. I say yes. Now it gives me the folder and I'm back to the piece, right? So I clicked 3 times because I told it to. I told it pause. Otherwise, it would have just done that in 30 seconds. So I could have 6 scripts that do different things and just go script 1, script 2, script 3, script 4, and that one of 500 machines has an amazing amount of configurations and components done, right? Installed and configured and everything because I automated it, right? That's what your company wants you to show. They want to see that you can not only do everything that a computer user should do, but they also want to see that you're critically thinking where I want to streamline my workflow so I don't have to do this every time, right? They want to see that you get tired of doing 50, single line entries in a row. Okay. So there is a chat question. Let me see if I can answer that. Can I use regular expressions in the CLI? No, it's a programming language like anything else. You have to use the actual coding for that particular purpose. But again, I'm going to be honest. The websites I gave you, almost everything you're ever going to really need to use, unless it's something really unique that you find, are in those. So once you learn these formats, you're going to be okay. There's not much else that will come up. There is something that is very specific that I do want to focus on. In your network commands, right? When you're dealing with cybersecurity or networking, right? And you're troubleshooting somebody, like just not even cybersecurity related, but if you're just troubleshooting a network issue where the person can't connect to the network, or is slow or whatever it might be, all these different things are key to use them a lot, right? So one of the ones you use is that, you basically come in here and you want to find the IP config, you want to find the IP address of a machine. Well, this will give you all the information plus the MAC address and everything. But you can also do ipconfig/all, and it'll give you DNS information, tunneling information, like everything that you want to know about that particular machine, so that you can troubleshoot it as you're moving, right? You'll see that there's something called get MAC, right? So sometimes you don't want to see all that, so you get MAC address, and it just gives you the MAC address currently being used for that machine, right? So you have the MAC address if you don't know, MAC address is the hex value that's basically burned in at the factory on your communication device. So on your NIC card, your network interface card, there's an ID that's unique to every other network card in the world, and that's ever been before, ever will be. So that allows us to really track who's sending what, who's doing what, and what MAC address that is. If you want to do your ARP or your route lookup or trace route, right? So your ARP will give you your address resolution protocol for a particular device. Okay, so if you did ARP-S And we said 127.0.0.1. Right, that'll give us the address resolution protocol for that. If you do a route print, so every device has routes that it usually acquires from the router that it's connected to as its default gateway. But if there's no router on the network, it still has local routing tables that it will know kind of how to communicate among its local area network. And that route command is really important to figure out why things are slow, right? The machine is fine. It's got all the latest updates. It's got the patches, it's got everything else. But, you know, if you're trying to get to, like, if we go to ipconfig /all, and we see that our default gateway is, you know, 64.135, excuse me, 64.35.176.1. Okay, so if we say ping, right, and we ping that, ping's another command line, but it'll ping sends a packet over to communications to test that particular connection between the two. But if we did traceroute, right, traceroute will track how many hops your network is taking to get to that, right? So sometimes what happens is a workstation is misconfigured, and what happens is it's trying to get to its default gateway, and it should be the first hop, just like you just saw right here. But all of a sudden, you start seeing there's 17 hops that your machine is taking to get to the machine next to it, right? And that trace route is a command line piece you use a lot to basically see, like, this doesn't seem like it should be slow. It's not using a lot of memory. It's not using a lot of processor speed, processor resources. So it doesn't really seem like it should be slow. So let me just see what route it's taking to get to the server, which is like in the next room, right? And all of a sudden you see it going like 16 different countries and then coming back to the server. Basically the next room, and you say, all right, this is a routing problem. I have to make the changes on the router itself, or on the local machine, we have to change the routing tables on there. So basically, as far as Windows goes, you have, right, the ability to completely manage your operating system, right? Everything file-wise, deleting, renaming, moving, replacing, right? Everything there. Managing your system as far as how it actually runs, performance-wise, right? Everything from command line. And remember, command line, because it's command line, you can do all this remotely behind the scenes, and the person can keep on working, right? You could be like, all right, Joe, I'm going to work behind the scenes. They don't really see you moving around with a mouse or anything. It's all that you're essentially emulating into the machine, right? Okay. You have the ability, again, remember, very dangerous. We have the ability to manage your disks and formats and partitions and everything else on there. You have the ability to basically find out everything about your system's patches and versions and everything else without ever really going into my computer control panel, blah, 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 like click, 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 click. You have the ability to really find out anything about your machine as far as the network configuration, but also a lot about other devices on the network itself and the network itself as well. And of course, you can configure it to be very useful to you the way you like to see it, right? On top of all of this, you can create scripts that the operating system, the Windows operating system, will see as a script and run it just like an executable program. It doesn't really go into it here, but in those scripting programs, you could do conditionals. You could do if exists, like you could look for file existing or not. You can do conditionals if one thing then another. So it's kind of like a little very, very basic programming language, and you can do a lot of different things with it. So I would definitely get very familiar with not just command line, but also placing all those command line entries into a script that can be run over and over whenever you need it. Okay, what I'm going to do, we don't really have that much time remaining. I kind of went over, but I do want to make sure that I cover the other Linux commands, right? So similar, not exact, but very, very similar to the Windows command line. Linux has a bunch of different options that control, again, the operating system and everything else. It even has a few that are very, very useful that Windows doesn't really have. Which is neat too. They have like a compare functionality. You compare two files with what's different. So I find them very very interesting that way. All right, so just keep in mind Linux has it now. Historically, the Linux distributions have always been console based anyway, right? So they haven't really gone the route of a GUI interface until recently. So when you go to a Linux machine now, a distribution now, you do have a very basic, well, it's not that basic. It actually works pretty well, but you do have the ability to use a menu system and to go into a file folder system and everything else. But really, traditionally, Linux has always been a command line system anyway, right? So in Linux now you'll have an icon or something like that. You can also program your Linux operating system to not even boot up with a GUI. Like let's say you just don't want it at all. Say you're running an Apache web server or something like that, and you just basically want it to reboot really quickly and not load the graphical user interface. You can do that as well. Okay, and what you'll see in your Linux operating system is that everything we kind of had before we still have now, right? So you have in this case, let me see if I'm trying to stay on the same machine in case I have to copy and excuse me, in case I have to copy and paste. So bear with me a second. Get back on it. Yeah. So if we're in this system, right? So in Linux, if we did ls, right, it'll give you a listing of the directory that you're currently in, right? Then there's like ls-a, there's ls-t, and each one will give you like an ordered or highlighted or color-coded version of your listing, right? So in this case, we have a folder called public. So again, cd public will change the so I have to make sure it's case sensitive here. So it's a little bit more sensitive than Windows, right? But then you could do same thing. You could do dir again and show everything that's in the public folder, right? You can do cd back ... and go back one. You can do cd bookshelf and see if there's anything in there, right? So there's one particular folder that's in there. You can do the same thing with PDF, you could do start.pdf if you're looking for things. You can do, in this case, you could do RPI beginner's guide.digital.star to, you didn't know if it was a PDF or not. So you could do all that. And very similarly, you'll see things like, this is what I was talking about before, the difference, like the diff function. You can have two files and you can, compare the difference between them, which one is what's different between the two. We could probably, I'm going to be bold here, I wasn't really prepared to do that, but it's a pretty cool feature. So let me see if I can go back to let's see if I think we do cd bios, right? And if we look up all of our if we look up all of our pi files, right, we have beos.py. .py is a Python program, by the way. So if you ever want to, sudo is the administrative command to run things as an administrator in Linux, and nano is just one of their text editors to open up files and read them, right? So nano is that. It has nothing to do with any of the files that I'm looking at. But if I open beos.py, this is a Python file. So even though I'm using a Linux editor, I can edit the Python file, and when I run it, Python's on the system. You do have to install Python in Linux, but once you install it, it'll run these particular codes. So this is the type of Python code that you'd want a totally different session. We have an interest session in Python you can join. But Python is a programming language, just like Java and just like C and C++ and C#. But basically, basically we can use the editor and command line to basically edit files and save them as well. So if I just do start.py again for all the Python programs, let's say we wanted to see the difference between bios.py and eos.py, right? I believe if I just put in the two of them, yeah, it's really cool. It comes back and it tells you, like, out of these two documents, these are the lines that are different, right? So it's either going to tell you that something is spelled differently, so or that something is unique. In the cyber arena, whenever you want to look at two files and one is like, I don't know, like couple of K bigger than the other, and you're concerned that there might be some malicious code in there, the diff file actually winds up telling you why it's different, right? What's different between the two. So that's kind of a neat one that I don't believe is in Windows at all, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But just keep that in mind that that's a really neat one to know that's out there. Okay. So again, make directory. You can move files. There's copy, right? So copy is Windows, but move is the copy command in Linux. Removing the directory, right? We use the delete command in Windows. Like we didn't really do it, but if you do, the delete command, I think it's del, sorry. It's, yeah, if you do the del command, it's delete, and you could delete subfolders or entire directories or whatever it is. Again, kind of dangerous, but on the same note. If you think about like the situation before with the 500 computers, if you're staging 500 computers, you have to do the same thing. Sometimes you might be copying something, but then deleting the old folder that you just copied, like creating a temporary file, creating a temporary folder, dumping a bunch of stuff in, then copying it over, then renaming stuff, and then, writing scripts for this install is actually really useful. I used to be a network administrator years ago, and we would constantly get in just, 10, 20, 30, 100 computers for these annexes we would set up. And you had to configure each one of them by hand if you didn't know how to code. So we wrote a lot of code. We wrote a lot of bash files and scripts to and constantly editing too. Like, this is one more step we have to do. We forgot about it. So you would constantly edit these scripts, and then the next time you install the machine, it was one less step you had to do. So it was really useful, really efficient, and it's really something that everybody wants you to know how to do. All right. So what I'm going to do is we're a little over time. I'm going to stop the recording.